Welcome to A24 on the Rocks. I'm Eric, and I'm drinking a rosé today because it was very hot out today, and I kind of wanted to cool down with some nice rosé wine. Up next, we have my lovely wife, Kelly.
Hey, it's me, everyone's lovely wife, Kelly. Wait, just Eric's. I'm also drinking a rosé because Eric and I live together. Maybe you've picked up on that by now. But I'm serving a look tonight. I've got a full face of makeup on, and I'm feeling inspired. After me comes...
What's up? It's Blaze with Gerald Ryan the First. I am drinking Jack Daniel's Honey with a splash of Diet Pepsi because they didn't have Diet Coke at the store. Don't ask me why. Next up, finally, tonight we have...
This is Cole William Whitlaw Gibson, your resident Canadian here, drinking the lovely Son of a Pete, the Redeemer, batch number 3 scotch. I'm feeling fancy, feeling smoky, need a drink.
Batch number 3 sucks, man. Batch number 4 is where it's at.
No, there isn't a number 4. That shows you how little you understand.
I got it on special reserve.
Uh-huh.
A24 on the rocks.
Today we're reviewing A Most Violent Year. And the plot of this movie is, in 1981 New York City, Abel Morales, the owner of a Queens heating oil company, has 30 days to come up with money to close on a property that will exponentially help his business. With his oil trucks getting hijacked and fierce competition from his competitors, plus pending charges from the district attorney's office, Abel is faced with a set of choices that pin the success of his business against eating his own pride and morality. Dun dun dun. So I kind of want to start out, since 1981 is such an important time, or important piece to this film, I kind of wanted to set our audience back in 1981 and just kind of name some things that were going on during that time. Ronald Reagan, the actor, was president, and he appointed the first female Supreme Court justice ever that year, Sandra Day O'Connor. There was also a large air traffic controller strike in which President Reagan fired all the striking employees in an attempt to break the back of the air traffic controller union. NASA launched its first space shuttle mission. IBM launched its first PC that used Microsoft software. Iran released the last of its 52 American hostages after they took people from the American embassy hostage following the Iranian Revolution a few years prior. Elijah Wood and Justin Timberlake were born. Betty Davis Eyes by Kim Carnes was the top Billboard song of the year, and Raiders of the Lost Ark was the highest grossing film of the year. And this year, there were more reported robberies in New York City than any year in its history. Hence the name A Most Violent Year. So, let's start out with Blaze here. In a previous episode, you were surprised by the look of New York City in the 80s and that much crime was going on. So the opening shots of this film are very much intended to set you in the time period and landscape that the film takes place in. What did you think of this portrayal of New York City in 1981?
I felt it felt very human. The setting, at least, and the time period. I don't know who the cinematographer was, but they did a really good job of establishing shots. It almost felt like it was like filmed on like some sort of like 35 millimeter because it was very hazy, but it was also very crisp. So as far as setting the scene of 1981, I hate to call like the 80s a period piece, but it was like 40 years ago at this point. So it is a period piece. And I just like all like the mechanical accounting machine that Jessica Chastain was using, the extremely 80s house. There's a scene where Oscar Isaac goes to another oil boss, and he just found out about a tennis machine, like the automatic tennis balls. You know, it was a very interesting time in America. It was almost contrasted of the Green Dragon, where it felt really, really slummy in the Green Dragon. Well, in this movie, you got to see more of upper middle class and richer people, but also sprinkled in, you know, the regular everyday workers. So I thought the setting was very cool.
Kelly, what do you think of these 1981 vibes?
The setting, I agree, was cool. The cinematography is nearly unmatched in how amazing it was. As Blaze...
Bradford Young is the cinematographer, by the way. Just gonna say that.
As Blaze was saying, it had a hazy but crisp feeling. I felt that it was velvety the whole time. It just looked gorgeous, and the color palettes were unstoppably beautiful. You can't go wrong with blues and oranges, and they really took advantage of that, along with the like emeraldy greens, and there was a lot of other colors that just are gorgeous, set the time, and so many landscapes that just looked like landscape art that someone might have painted themselves. They would just sit on that frame for a long time. So it painted a beautiful, beautiful picture.
Cole, you're 80s lover.
Yes.
What did you think of the
Yeah, so
1981?
I'm a big fan of the 80s, especially for the films from that era. I loved like the setting and like the way they presented everything, and like Kelly and Blaze said, the cinematography was it was awesome. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, all the wide angles and the long shots and stuff were all perfectly timed and done extremely well. Unlike Green Dragons, like Blaze said, this world felt alive and felt more like there was like a soul and stuff going on, while Green Dragons felt very just hollow and empty, kind of a shell, while this one had warmth and feeling and just like, I don't know, the way they used the backdrops and stuff in certain scenes was awesome. Big good vibes, cool vibes.
Yeah, at the start of this film, they really started you out. It was Queens where a lot of this was supposed to take place. And you could see a lot of the deindustrialization, though, and almost my city right next to me, Detroit. There's almost kind of a sadness, but almost a poetry in a way to some of the nature overtaking the urban jungle that was. And that's what I definitely got from this film. So shortly after the, kind of the setting shots of this film, we follow a young truck driver named Julian that works for Abel's heating and oil company. He gets his truck robbed and his jaw broken and ends up in the hospital. So Cole, what did you think Julian represented to the audience at this point of the film?
I think Julian, like his representation was kind of as the, kind of like the linchpin, so to speak, of what Oscar Isaac's character doesn't want to do, and then the flip side is what all the other kind of gangsters are doing for the oil and gas industry, and that individual in that scene, he was kind of the cause and effect, so to speak, of all your drivers are getting the shit kicked out, beat out of them because you're not protecting them, but Oscar Isaac doesn't want to go down the gangster route, while all the other gangsters are, they're going to take advantage of it, and that guy was caught in the middle, and then they used him throughout the film to kind of exacerbate certain things and use him as not like a scapegoat, I guess, but use him to further push kind of Oscar Isaac's limits, and then also gives kind of a closure as to why Oscar Isaac didn't want to do certain things, and towards the end of the movie in the culmination.
Okay. So it's not lost on me that Abel, Oscar Isaac, was a driver to start out in this industry. Kelly, did you get any feels that like Julian kind of mirrored Abel earlier in his life?
Yeah, why'd you have to spoon feed it to me? That's what I was gonna say.
Okay, well,
But very much like they clearly make that a fact for us to draw that conclusion that he's hoping to be what our main character is now. That's his goal, and that's the person he's attached his star to is what you call it when you're just like, this is what I want to be. Mm-hmm. This is where I'm going to put my talent forth, because if I do good enough, I can end up like him. But in all of these kind of things, there's winners and there's losers, and there's more losers than there isn't. So I think that it's very clear we're supposed to, they mirror each other, and that always makes for a very good story.
Definitely. So his first competitors we meet are a sleazy man in a barbershop named Arnold Klein. And then we have Peter Ferrante, who is played by Alessandro Nivola, who played Roland in Ginger and Rosa. And Blaze, you mentioned, he was playing tennis. What is the vibe you get from the other people in the industry? How are they different?
I believe his name's Abel, right?
I think so too.
I thought
ABEL.
Oh, Abel. Okay.
His competitors, as you aptly called them, they are a lot grimier than Abel in this movie. They are very used to the old ways. I think one of the main themes of this movie is the changing of the guards on how, especially in this heating oil business, how business is practiced. Because these other guys are shisty, to say the least. The Peter guy who owned the tennis racket court, he said, yeah, my dad is an old school gangster, and this is how like life used to be. We used to have to like ford up, and we just expected this. Well, Abel is more, he's more trying to be progressive in the fact he's trying to convince them that we don't have to be at war against each other. We can all live in harmony. The contrast is, like I said, the changing of the guards, where these guys seem really sleazy and willing to do whatever it takes to keep their own fiefdoms, and Abel is more like, hey, we're all in this together. So I thought that was a great compare and contrast between the old school and the new school in this movie.
Cole, did you get those vibes too? The kind of compare and contrast to Abel and his his competitors.
The guy who plays Peter, I mean, fuck that guy. Still upset about Ginger and Rosa stuff. But, which, to be fair, I feel like my feelings did get validated through this movie, because I think he still is a scumbag. But yeah, it was definitely, I liked how they portrayed, like Blaze was saying, the changing of the guards, especially with Oscar Isaac or Abel kind of coming in and trying to do things right. And he, bought this business from his wife's father, who was a known, gangster at the time, and is dealing with all these other kind of like mob boss mentality people. And you got some of the young blood coming in, like the granddaughter who was coming in. You got Peter, who was trying to do things a little bit differently, but still kind of a sleazebag. And then there's some of the older guys still holding on that were just like, would come up to like Abel at the, when he's getting his haircut and stuff, and kind of make, some little threats to him, so to speak, like the old school way of, if you don't, you got to stay out of our turf, otherwise we're going to, fuck up your people or whatever. So and I enjoyed it.
So Abel's wife, Anna, she seems to have as much of a hand in the business as Abel. She's played by Jessica Chastain of Zero Dark 30. That was the one she won an Oscar for. She seems to be okay bending the rules where Abel isn't as much. And it's kind of insinuated these charges against their business might have something to do with her accounting and what she's been doing with the money all these years. Kelly, what do you think she represents as a character?
She is a low-key badass. I love that she isn't just a pretty wife. She is also a working woman and is just as involved in these business transactions as her husband is. I love that she's like, at any given time, we can get my dad and my brother involved. And it's always, no, we're going to do the right thing. And at the same time, she greatly respects her husband for that until things start getting in the way of her family. And then it becomes, if you're not going to take care of us, then I will. And I think that having that deer scene it said so much about the two of them as characters. I thought that was extremely well done. And it really painted a broad picture of who they are as people just with that simple scene. But she's badass.
Blaze, I'm going to go to you. She mentioned it, so I guess this is really a great scene that shows the difference between Abel and Anna. Abel, when he hit a deer with his car, he hesitated to kill it with a tire iron, and then out of frame we hear gunshots, and we figure out Anna has shot the deer with a gun. What do you think that says about the difference between the two of them? And also, what do you think that scene really meant?
I think, first of all, phenomenal scene. That was probably like outside of the chase scene, which we'll probably talk about eventually. That was my favorite scene in the whole movie, just how well, just because Chastain portrayed her character. I actually wrote down the line that she said, because this is after she had found a gun in her daughter's hand when a intruder tried to break into their house and, goon them up. She said, unlike you, who seems totally comfortable just standing around like some fucking pussy, I did something about it, which is amazing. And what it means is that I think, like, for a movie that doesn't really have a lot of twists or turns or whatever, I think this was the exact moment where you found out, like, who's really running this company, who's really running this family, who, I hate, it probably sounds like a dead horse, but, like, she's like the Lady Macbeth of this movie, where she is constantly, like, whispering into his ear, to not go down the right path, to be a little, crooked, just to, because everyone else is cheating, you might as well cheat too. I think this was a really strong portrayal of a strong female character that knows what she wants, and nothing's going to get in the way of her family and her begrudging business. So yeah, just phenomenal. And I really feel like that's where she took command of the movie, at least as far as like who's running things within her and
Yeah.
Abel's family.
Cole, I know you like strong redheaded woman, so you can talk about Anna a little bit here, and also Jessica Chastain's portrayal of her.
Yeah, so my fourth note for this movie was just I love Jessica. I thought she was awesome. I think she's a phenomenal actress all around. I've enjoyed like the Zero Dark 30 and other films that she's done, but I was not expecting her to be as like such a badass in this movie, and I loved it. I thought she nailed it. And that deer scene where she like shoots it, one that I was not prepared for a gunshot, so that startled me. And then when they get back in the car, she plays it perfectly, where she's kind of sitting there with a little smirk on her face of just like, yeah, I'll take care of things because you can't fucking do anything right. And yeah, I all about it. Love Jessica Chastain. She deserves the best. I don't know if she's married, but hit me up.
Oh my god.
Kelly, you were about to say something?
I was going to add in just the symbolism of him wanting to do the tire iron was him taking the right way in his mind, the long way, the hard way, work hard and get it done. And hers, she's like, there's a quick way, there's a questionably legal way, and that's the route that I'm going to take. And it foreshadows the movie. We love a good foreshadowing, and they did just perfect delivery.
So I think her character definitely, yeah, like she juxtaposes Abel a lot throughout the film. Abel is definitely somebody who is teetering on that line of morality and immorality. He wants to be moral, but he often gets pulled into these situations where he is becoming immoral throughout the film. The other thing I wanted to ask is, Abel, he married Anna, and Anna was the daughter of a mobster. And it's insinuated that he bought this business at a discount. So I have to ask, is Abel truly a self-made man, as he, kind of insinuates multiple times throughout this film? He bought this business from Anna's father at a discount. And yeah, often when Abel talks about how he's self-made, Anna will just like laugh at him, So Cole, do you think this American dream image of him is kind of a mirage?
Yes and no. I mean, I think how he was able to, I think his American image, or what his like ideal, or what he wants is to buy that land, and he's trying to do it the right way and without getting goons and muscling people and breaking legs, so to speak. And that's what his, I think, American dream is. Obviously he's already reached a certain point where the character like Julian is like, you've already have everything. To that point, I don't think he got to that point in like by his own hard work, so to speak. I mean, he definitely worked hard and put in the time, but with his relationship with Jessica Chastain and buying that business at a discount, and obviously when he inherited that business, all of the other businesses were run crookedly. He kept the same standard industry practices for a long time, or I don't even know if they, I guess, technically changed their standard industry practices, because they kept saying it over and over, and everyone seems to be shorting people and messing with the scales and whatnot. So I think he's a gangster with morals, but his morals only go as far as physical violence, so to speak.
Yeah. Blaze, did you kind of feel that he wasn't exactly a true like kind of picture of this American dream? There was definitely some underlying parts to him that he wasn't exactly self-made. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah, I 100% agree. I think that's part of what this movie is trying to purvey, is that the American dream, as, especially when we saw in the 80s, was the age of greed and, corporate, gimme, gimme, gimme. And
greed is good.
Exactly. And so I think the message was with him, who his wife was, who his father-in-law was, it's no one is going to make it by being completely clean. You got to get your feet wet at least a little. And it's what you do with that power once you make it to the top. I think like he had to cut corners a lot in life to make it where he was at the beginning of the film. And then as soon as he makes it, he can kind of make the world his own, and he can really try to walk that straight moral path. So yes, he did not make it on his own. He did not make it, through the blood, sweat, and tears and, a little bit of luck. He definitely got a deal from a gangster because of who his wife was, and that juxtaposes to Julian, whose wife is just another Hispanic immigrant, where his life sort of spirals down. Abel, he kind of benefits from the society of, the breaks that he's gotten.
Went this far, and we haven't mentioned Albert Brooks as playing the lawyer. I love Albert Brooks. He's actually more known for being in a lot of romantic comedies, but he plays the lawyer who he is constantly dealing with the assistant DA that is going after Standard Heating and Oil, Bell's business. My question is here to Kelly, why do you think the assistant DA is specifically going after them when there's so many other corrupt people in this industry?
Didn't he say when they were in the court scene, like that's what he's been in charge of, is cleaning up that industry specifically?
Yeah. Yes, but yeah, like I'm wondering why they're going after Abel's specific business as opposed to all these other people that are seemingly even more corrupt,
It's because of whoever the wife's dad was. Obviously, he was a massive gangster, or currently still is. I don't think we ever met him. But they have that conversation outside of the child's birthday, and I think that's what it is. I think it's the mobster connection. I think that's his easiest, the one that he thinks he can prove the most, and the one that he can follow the easiest, because it's established. Something's already happened in there. Everything else, you got to dig up something new. But I did like the relationship that he had with Abel, where it was a gentleman's kind of contract and these handshakes and, well, you seem like a nice guy, so I'll go ahead and tell you this right now. Love negotiation scenes. There's tons in this movie, but the kind of relationship that these two had and how it results in the end, I found extremely interesting, fascinating. Well done. I always end my sentences that way. I found it interesting. I found this one interesting too.
Yeah. So, please.
Yeah, I just want to say that the reason why he went after Abel's oil company specifically was just pure political, because it's easier to slap, 16 infractions, and then you can go to the paper and be like, look how much we're cleaning this industry, instead of like actually doing the grunt work and finding out these thugs who are, robbing their competitors. It's so much easier to say, we caught them cheating on their books a little bit. So I think that's why.
Good point.
Especially at the time, yeah.
And probably, if they went after the others, it would probably expose more money, which we'll later find out people in this industry are probably paying people off to not go after them. As we progress, we start to see the downfall of Julian's character. He is, the trucker that got his jaw broken. More of Abel's trucks are getting robbed. And so the union that represents these truck drivers wants to arm all of the truck drivers so that they're not, quote unquote, sitting ducks, Abel is against this, clinging to his pride and morality. This is a line that's too far, arming his truck drivers. And this leads up to Julian's first day back at work, where the same two people that robbed him before attempt to rob him again, only this time Julian has a gun. And this leads to an awesome chase scene where they're running across a bridge in New York City. This, ends up with him running from the cops, and, kind of the rest of the film, this guy's going to be running. So my question to Cole here is, this is really, it's hitting home that Julian, he might be kind of a mirror image of Abel, but this is where their paths really split right here. Abel got a lucky break in life. Is Julian really just representing what Abel would have been if he never got that lucky break?
Yeah, I think. Obviously, I think Abel got a lucky break, but the movie uses this kind of turn to really like pound it into everyone's head of, this is why, Abel has his morals of the no guns and not illegally arming his truck drivers and stuff, because in Julian, epitomizes that split, that fork in the road of, Oscar Isaac's Abel. He could have packed the whole time he was driving, and he would have went down the more of the gangster route of being on the run, but he chose to take, not the easiest path, but the, as he calls it, the most right path, where he chose, not to arm himself, not to use the guns, and to persevere and keep, pushing on. That chase scene was awesome. I loved it. I thought it was one of the more realistic portrayals of an interaction of attempted carjacking of the truck, and where they're kind of having a conversation and the guy's trying to convince him of like, well, why are you gonna shoot at me? There's all these people, you could end up shooting him, and then they end up all running from the cops. And that interaction in the stairwell, I absolutely love between the two guys. Is they're like out of breath, they're dying, they just ran for their life. And the one guy's just like, "Why the fuck you have to be a hero? You could just let us steal the stupid truck." And the guy's like, "Fuck you."
Yep.
And the guy's like, "No, fuck you." And then he's like, "If you take the stairs, you come out to the park, and then you could go on your way." And it's like, kind of like a respect thing where the guy's like, you know what, fuck it, here, I'll help you out so we can all get away from the cops and get back to doing what we do. Yeah. I really, really liked that scene a lot. I thought that was a very cool.
Yeah, Kelly, give me your thoughts on that chase scene. Just how wonderful I thought it was, but how wonderful did you think it was as wonderful?
Yeah, I did not expect everybody to live. I thought if they didn't end up killing each other, that the cops would shoot them down or something. You can't just shoot guns on a highway with like 10 cops showing up. It's kind of crazy to me that they didn't shoot them. It was this fun kind of camaraderie in the end of, as Cole had just explained, their back and forth, and even when they start running, they're just like, you better follow us. Like, you better get going. But it had me so many times wondering, okay, well, now he's going to shoot him. Oh, that didn't happen. Okay, now he's going to turn himself in. Oh, that didn't happen. Okay, once he gets into this spot, now the robbers are just going to end him. Nope. Tricked me again. And it all seemed like something that could actually happen. Being someone who has never been in that situation, possibly never will, it was realistic as far as I can tell of how it's just like, okay, we'll all survive now and we're on the same side and we'll get back to doing, as Cole said, what we were doing.
Yep. Blaze, thoughts on the chase scene?
Yeah, I think you both already explained it extremely well. Just like how real the chase scene felt. Because a lot of chase scenes, like, I hate to do the worst example, but like a Fast and the Furious movie, it gets so ridiculous with like jumps and, crazy, like stuntman stuff that it almost takes you out of a movie. And the realism of this chase scene, especially, when they get out of the trucks and they're chasing them on foot and you can see them both physically exhausted, like they don't want to run anymore, like I would be. This is last week I thought was a really good chase scene in The Captive, and this one just found a way to top it, and just the gritty realism of what doing that would actually be like for most human beings. Absolutely wonderful. I do want to go back to what you said about the contrast about Julian and Abel. Do you guys think it's interesting in 1981? So Julian is a little sheepish, understandably, of going back out on the road. And he asks Abel if he's ready to be a salesperson. And he says, "You're not ready yet." And then next scene or a few scenes later, he's with his new sales recruits. And they're all white people.
Yeah, true.
Do you think that had something to do with the time period, whether they're ready? Like he says, he got talking about how fancy they were and how, they were the best. But I really feel like maybe he felt like a minority wouldn't be the best for his business now that he's in charge.
Left with the clues that we had in the movie, that's what I came to deduce as well. Because what other reason were we given for him to say that?
Yeah. Exactly. I'm sure deep down he thinks that people might have an underlying racism against a Mexican man trying to sell them, or sell things to them. There must have been an underlying racism there that him as a business owner, he just kind of knew that. So there's definitely something there. I think that's a astute point. Now we're heading towards the climax of the film here, where Abel, he tells his competitors to stop stealing from him in a scintillating scene around a dinner table that almost represents a mob boss meetup. Anna is constantly angry at him, at Abel's inaction, and so is Abel's lawyer. So, what are your thoughts on that scene, as it's definitely one of the most intense scenes in the film? I'll give this one back to Blaze, actually.
Yeah, the scene itself was, for being as anti-gangster movie as this is, there aren't many scenes like this where you can actually like feel the tension in the room, the entire scene. So I think they did a really good job on portraying the type of stress that Abel was in, his own personal problems, and also with how they say that they're like with him at the end, but it kind of felt empty promises. So like you really felt there was going to be like a big climactic scene during that, and it kind of fell apart at the end. Abel had backed himself into a corner by even setting up this meeting. And so, yeah, I think it was really dramatic how they played out the entire scene.
Kelly, same to you? What
I
are your
thought they
thoughts on
did.
that scene?
It was a great job of storytelling and script writing that everyone who was at that table at that time, we had already met in the movie in different circumstances before that happened, which for us as viewers gives us a lot of, we should be feeling what our main character is feeling because they set it up for us. And it comes immediately after the scene where he is asking the oil granddaughter, I'll call her, for the loan, where he's going within his own industry. That's just how he's going to do what he has to do. And then immediately she's at the table, and they've been talking before he gets there, and I'm like, they've already got established relationships. It was really good. Like I said, there's negotiation scenes, and they're sitting around a table scene. I don't love if the whole movie is that kind of way. I'm a loud hater of The Godfather, if nobody knows that already. Can't stand that movie. They did... This
You're saying
movie,
that on a
however,
movie podcast. That's really funny.
I know. This movie, however,
We can edit that out, right?
We just lost all of our viewers.
Let's
the
get
biggest
that
part
movie's
for me,
gone.
the biggest part for me is we had been introduced to everyone at that table ahead of time, and I thought that was extremely strong point of storytelling.
All right, so this is shortly followed by a chase scene where Abel chases down one of the robbers of the trucks and uses violence and a gun to try to intimidate one of them into giving him answers after the robber flips over one of those oil trucks. So in this film, we constantly live on the line of the moral and the immoral, especially with Abel. And even though Abel chooses to let the robber go, Cole, was this the point where we got a hint of Abel finally choosing to let go his morality and to bend the rules?
I don't think so, because I think, he's, the whole entire time I'm like, he's going to snap, he's going to break. And this whole scene, like the chase scene where they flip over the whole oil tanker, the truck, and he's running for his life, and he finally catches him, and he has the gun, and he just is beating the shit out of him, and is jamming the gun into the guy's eye. I'm like, he's just going to fucking pull the trigger. I'm like, this is going to be where he, like, snaps. And everything changes, and now he's about to go, most violent year on everybody, which is what I was thinking. And then he pulls back, and he sticks by his morals of not resorting to, he did resort to violence, but not to the extreme as, say, all of the other people that, all the other mob bosses and stuff probably would have just killed that guy right away and moved on. And I think he even got, by choosing to let the guy go and just telling him to leave, the guy gives him the information he wanted. And so he's rewarded for not taking that final plunge of crossing the line of murder and turning into basically just a gangster at that point. So I don't think he stuck by his convictions, even though he got pushed so far to the edge to the point where, any other gangster would have just killed that guy and moved on with their lives. But he did not, so.
Okay. Blaze, do you think this was at least hinting at that, kind of the death of Abel's morality?
Yeah, I think this was his exact tipping point Cole was alluding to. I think this is like at the line where even most people who are decent in life would probably just be so frustrated, be so stressed, be so whatever, and Cole said, like, he didn't end up shooting the guy, but he was literally, like, jamming that gum into his face, and he had murder in his eyes. Luckily, I think if he didn't know where the guy was coming from, who knows what would have happened if he hadn't gotten the clue. But yeah, I think this was really supposed to be the point in the movie where his mettle was actually tested as waves of life kept crashing and crashing. This would have been the perfect time. They were all alone. He would have probably gotten away with it scot-free, and he chose to walk away from the situation and get it done the long but hard way. Yes, this was the exact tipping point, but he definitely overcame it somehow.
We're getting towards the end of the film here. So Abel finally figures out who's been stealing from him, as the robber says that he's been selling his oil in Far Rockaway Beach. But still, he does not have enough money to pay for the property that he wants to buy. And so this is kind of followed up with him having to swallow his pride. He has to go around asking his competitors for money to secure the financing for his property. And so this kind of leads to Abel figuring out that his wife has been skimming money from the company all along, and that she has an undisclosed amount of money that will make it so he can purchase the property without taking money from his biggest competitor. But on the way to that, though, it's really, Abel, he's hanging on to his pride. That's really the only thing he has left. And I think, that was such a big part of his character. So him going around asking for these people for money, Kelly, do you think that was really the death of his pride and ego at that point?
Yeah, I think so. Especially asking his little brother. He's going to ask his little brother. He's going to ask someone who's his competitor. He's going to ask the scary mob guy who says, I'm not a good person to do business with. I think so. I think that that's a really, really difficult thing to do, especially if you are well respected in your industry and as a businessman.
Cole, did you think that was kind of the death of his pride at that point?
Yeah, I mean, I think his pride took a big hit, but he, I would say his pride took a hit, but he was a strong enough man to get, or not man, but like a strong enough individual and from a character perspective to understand that he's not going to let pride ruin the life that he's trying to build for him and his family, and to get, like I said, his American dream, which is to get that property, to establish his business, to be able to run it the right way, and to beat his competitors and be the, oil guru for that area, and to do it without having to resort to buying, to the goons and stuff. And if he has to get that money from less favorable sources, he's willing to swallow his pride and do so. So I think his pride took a hit, but I think he showed, I guess, a lot of character. He's a complex character that has strong morals and a strong drive, and he's not going to let, pride get in the way of what he wants to accomplish.
So, yeah, that after he asks all those people for money, it follows up with his wife telling him, yeah, she's been skimming money off the company all this time. He asks, can I actually buy this property and get away with it? Will I, get hit with a lawsuit or go to jail if I try to buy this property with this money? And she says it's as honest as every dollar we've ever made. Blaze, what do you think those words meant?
Nothing. They were hollow. I think she was trying to reinforce the fact that they wouldn't even be in business without her and her family that is connected to dirty money. So it was really more of a, probably in her sense, a more of a I told you so sort of thing, in the fact that you cannot make it in this business without getting your hands dirty. And she did it her way. She skimmed off the books just enough to where no one noticed until they got big enough. This is her just telling him that, there is no moral right path in business. There is only winners and there are losers. And throughout the movie, she expressed it. And that was kind of the final nail in the coffin of probably what he thought the American dream was. The ideal American dream versus the actual American dream.
Kelly, same to you.
I agree. I think Blaze said it really well. I found that this part of the story to be a little bit saw that coming.
She's been skimming the money the whole time. You saw that coming?
Yeah, with her desk and her wanting to hide all the papers. Not until I go through them, and when she finally says what she's been doing. And I like that she writes it down on a piece of paper, shows them great acting on both sides of him, what? It was a little bit, I saw that coming.
Can I just say, just real quick, since Kelly brought up the fact when the FBI came to the birthday party, they're hiding the boxes or whatever, and while they're waiting, I thought one of the greatest fuck yous was, passive aggressive fuck yous was Anna giving the cop a piece of birthday cake. That was so gangster in my opinion. Yeah. Oh man, this is the confidence, just the arrogance was just.
What does she say? She points at him this disappoints me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's
that was a great line.
Well, when she turned her on her heel and walks back in, that was my favorite, and I can't wait for that moment someday in my life where I get to just go, this was very disrespectful.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was something around ruining a birthday party over nothing and stuff You're embarrassing my family over nothing. Yeah.
So Cole, you're a Canadian. When you moved to this country, what was the real American dream versus the kind of fake American dream? As Blaze just said, when you were a young boy coming here, you came on that boat over Niagara Falls. I'm sure you went right over Niagara Falls and dropped right into Buffalo. What did you think the real American dream was versus the fake American dream? And how do you think this film portrays that?
So, my real American dream as a kid, I don't know. I never really had like the white picket fence or any of that like kind of nonsense of what I wanted for my American dream. I had I guess like as a kid, my goal was to get a very good job and make lots of money. That was my American dream is I want to be. When I heard someone talk about like six figures, I was like, that's what I want. I want to be the big guy. I want to make all the money.
Did you always want to do it honestly though, or if
I never thought about ever going into being a crook and gangster life and all that stuff, but
I think what this film really is trying to insinuate though is that if you do want to get to that next level, you want to be that millionaire, you're going to have to shed some bodies on the way. You're going to have to exploit people. There's going to be some like dirt that you're going to have to do. Do you think that's a fair portrayal of the real American dream?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
That's why I shot low for the six figures, because once you get into the the eight figures, there's at least one or two dead people for every millionaire. 100%. No, like to get to that level, and especially if you are a business owner and stuff. They talk about how you basically have to be like a sociopath and just cutthroat and not care about your competitor, and it's always a competition, and it does not matter how shitty it is or ethical or even in the gray area of legality of legal versus illegal. If you can use it and if you can get ahead, do it, because everybody's cheating, everybody's going to do it. If you don't do it, someone else will, and you're going to be the one that gets fucked.
So Kelly, I guess growing up for me, I always thought, hey, I could work an honest job, be a good guy, and I can achieve that American dream. I can, make a lot of money. And I mean, I think I'm doing okay for myself and I haven't killed anybody. But do you think that the American dream, as it pertains to this film, it's kind of trying to say it's a lie, Like, I think we were always sold in the movies and everything growing up that, yeah, if you work hard, you'll get to where you're going. But do you think in this film it's saying something different?
It's not telling us the same story that The Great Gatsby gives us, where even if you make it, you don't really belong. This is a different story that is, you can achieve it, but no one ever asked how you had to get there. And I think it's kind of how we were just saying, you look at these big figure jobs, you have to be kind of disconnected from humanity to a certain extent. I don't think that the American dream ever tells you that you don't have to do that. I think that if you want it bad enough and you just roll enough lucky dice, sure, it can be yours. And I think that that's what this movie is saying as well.
Okay. So finally, we have the last scene where Abel finally purchases his property, and Julian, the truck driver, shows up after all this time and shoots himself in front of them. Then there's that amazing shot of the blood on the oil tank and Abel plugging the hole next to his dead body, plugging the hole of the oil tank next to this guy's dead body. Blaze, do you think that was a metaphor for anything?
Oh, absolutely. I think it was a huge metaphor for profit over people. I think as much as he was shown to care for Julian, and Julian specifically said, right before he did commit suicide, he was like, I want you to watch over my family, take care of my family. And then he does the deed. And the fact that Abel, who has been, his whole life work has gone up to this, even like the smallest bit of lost profits is actually killing him more than his dead replaceable employee. So I think the metaphor is that once you make it to, again, we're talking about the American dream and stuff like that. Once you make it to a certain spot in life, the people beneath you are, less than people. And the product is actually more important than the people. So I think that was the metaphor, is that Abel had finally made that transition over to profit over people.
Mm-hmm. Kelly, same to you?
Blaze said it. I don't have to add anything, honestly.
Yeah. I guess, you're a graphic designer. What did you think of that shot? Just that shot of him with the blood on the oil tank and him plugging it.
Oh, it was well done, but more so for me, it was the audio. Yeah. I didn't realize what we were standing or what he was standing right in front of. And they don't show us the oils trickling down right away. We saw someone blow his brains out, and then we just hear trickling. And I was
Yep.
like, oh my God, it's his brain. It's the blood all over the ground. And then the
Yeah.
camera kind of pans, and I was like, oh no, it's the prophet, actually. It's the
Yeah.
money falling down. And I thought that when I first thought that it was like what I thought it was audio-wise, I was like, what an interesting, even darker twist, because a suicide is bad enough, but to put an audio that I first thought that it was, I was like, that's twisted. But then we get back into capitalism is evil, and look what happens.
For sure. And so following up, the assistant city attorney, essentially, he goes up to Bell after this guy killed himself, and he's there for that, and he basically says, or Bell says to him, I'm not going to accept felony charges, and then the guy's like, I know. And then he's just he basically tells him, in America, we pay to play. If you, give us some campaign donations, we will lessen your charges. You just eat some misdemeanors and some fines. You'll be fine. So, I think Kelly just kind of said it, but Cole, what did you think this film was a critique of overall? And what do you think it was really trying to say?
I think it was really trying to say that Teamsters are the bane of our existence. And they try and ruin all of our hard work.
Oh, come on, Ronald Reagan. Get out of here.
No. I think it was definitely a metaphor for capitalism, and what are you willing to do to get to your American dream or to your goal? Like what, how many people are you willing to walk over and fuck over, no matter how high moral you may seem. So like, Abel has high moral character compared to the other people of that industry. But when you compare him to like a normal American, his morals are way worse, because a lot of people, if they see a guy that they know and have cared for blow his brains out right in front of you, you're not going to think about the oil that's pouring out. You're going to think about, I just lost, a friend or someone that I knew, a coworker. Or even if a fucking random person killed themselves in front of you. That's pretty horrific. And he showed little to no remorse and did not care. So it just showed, how, like the capitalism and stuff, and how, when you become so money focused and you just lose your humanity, so to speak, where, he just cared about the money, did not care about the people. Also, that gun 100% would not have shot through that tank. Those tanks are way thicker. I'm going to get on my engineering soapbox here from our fuels division. We do lots of tank inspections and stuff. Those tanks are way thicker. That bullet would not go through that tank. Also, the head pressure on that oil to do like a laminar flow like that, no way a napkin's going to plug that hole either. So that's 2 knocks against you. Also, Oscar Isaac has a redheaded child. Don't know how that comes in the mix with a blonde
It's a recessive
woman.
gene.
What?
It's a recessive gene. That happens all the time.
No, but he's Hispanic, and his wife in this movie is blonde, even though Jessica Chastain has red hair. Don't know how that works out.
She's a
It could have been like
strawberry
some
blonde.
of her genes. Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Well, it happens though, where 2 parents are not redheaded and they have a redheaded child.
Well, yeah, that's me, but my dad isn't Hispanic either.
Well, then you could have came from the mom. Who knows? Kelly, you were about to say something?
Yeah, so Cole was talking about how most people, that kind of thing happens in front of you, and you're not just status quo, get it taken care of, moving on. I bought my new property. But also, on the side of opposite of business owner, he's an assistant DA, correct? He's the one who shows up to the scene,
DA.
and he's like, someone killed themselves on your property? This is a perfect time to give you my politics spiel. And let's move forward with this. And it's like, both sides are corrupt. Both sides are very corrupt, and they don't care about what's happening to, quote unquote, the little people.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And yeah, Blaze, did you get the same thing largely from that? I want to ask you more about basically saying if you donate some money to me, you can eat lesser charges. Did you think that was a very fair assessment of what would have went on during that time and now, actually?
Well, yeah, I think I agree with everything that Cole and Kelly said, but expounded on is as the point of the movie is to say the whole system is broken. The point is that Abel is actually trying to lead the most right path that you can in business, and that's the point. That even even the most straight of an arrow as a person in business is, they still are. There's going to be blood on their hands. Assistant DA Lawrence knows the game as well. So he says, let's perpetuate this. Let's become friends. I'm going to let you off with something a little easy. I'm still going to hit you. Then the public thinks I'm doing something. You don't get hit with, unpermitted guns. You don't get hit with this scamming shit. You get hit with your accounting's a little off, and everyone comes off as heroes. So
pays a fine. Yeah.
So, I think that's the point of, especially the ending scene. And I wanted especially to go back to what Kelly said about how great the cinematography was. And so they're talking about political stuff. And he tells Abel that he's come a long way in a short time. And Abel says that he's always chosen the path that was most right. And that was his current path. Lawrence says, I hope so. And they both look out to the view of a picturesque view of New York across the East River. And that was, the false, when you're talking about the 1980s, you're talking about the false advertisement of how great America was. And that was the great and establishing shot, especially for a movie that took place in 1981. It was all about the aesthetics. It wasn't about what was inside.
Yeah.
So, yes. I agree with
well
Paul
said,
and Kelly.
Well said, boys. And that's also, they give us that same kind of view near the beginning of the movie when he's looking at the property, when they're puts down his down payment. And it's an iconic view, and it means so much with just that one scene. And great example.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I also think that this is why the assistant DA was going after him specifically out of all these people, is because he might have been the only one not paying people off. And that's, at the end, he's like, well, you have the money and power now. You can make this go away. That'll lead, to what I actually thought this film was about. Yeah, I mean, I agree with it, what everyone really said. This is a harsh critique of capitalism. There is no morality in capitalism. No matter how good you want to be, there will be bodies left behind and people that are exploited, and you can only get ahead by bending the rules and being an immoral person when you get to that level of this world. This is a dog-eat-dog world, and the rule of law is really a mirage for people that have that much money and power. And that's what I think this film says overall, and this system only favors power and money. So, we can move on to our grades. Also, once I wanted to add that Alex Ebert, he did the closing song and did the music for this, and he's the guy from Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zero.
Oh, no way.
Who's like, he does Home.
Yeah. Alabama, Arkansas.
Yep.
The music on this movie was
kind of cool.
Also very good.
Yeah, and that ending song's called America for Me, and I saw this film before, and I love that song. So, anyway, ratings. Let's start out with Kelly.
Okay. We talked about storytelling, we talked about cinematography, we even touched on music towards the end. The highlight of this movie for me was cinematography, and I told us all why at the start of this episode. I think that if we had stripped away the cinematography, would the story be as strong? Yeah, it was extremely good. The way they introduce characters, the way that they give us just enough of them, and they also showcase people from all different walks of life with so little spoon-fed to us. They never underestimate the intelligence of the audience viewing this movie, which I really appreciate. Very good on storytelling as well. My one critique is that I don't feel that this movie had a wow factor. Had a wow factor, and it was an extremely good film, and it was an extremely beautiful film. But walking away from it when it ended, am I going to keep thinking about it? Am I going to want to watch it again within the next 5 years? Probably not. And that's not the biggest, diss. I still think amazing film. Everyone should probably see it. But is it one that I'm going to keep talking about, going back to, and putting in my top 10 best films ever? No. So with this in mind, strong B plus 24.
All right. Cole, we'll go to you next.
Unlike Kelly, I think there was lots of wow factors. Just whenever Jessica Chastain was present, she is herself a wow factor. So
that is true. That is very true.
Bonk! Gotta have a daily bonk, or every episode we're gonna have to bonk you at some point.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I loved the vibe and the feel and the cinematography. I've never seen this movie before, and I'm sad that I haven't seen this movie before because it is It is very good. I love this, like the story of a gangster movie with almost like a gangster that's an anti-gangster, where Abel doesn't want to be one, but he's in it. He's a part of it, but he doesn't want to do guns. He doesn't want to get goons. He doesn't want to do that, but he's still trying to command the same respect. And I really liked that. Kind of toeing that line. Oscar Isaac is a phenomenal actor. They did a great job building tension. The scene with the salesman and how it's cutting back between the salesman and Julian coming back to work, and that tension building as you can feel everything about to break, and super good. My one critique is I guess I got two. One, I don't know why Jessica Chastain can't be a redhead in the movie. Rude. And two, there is a scene where when the little girl finds a gun, it's a 1911, and then when they show the gun and she's waving it to her to Oscar Isaac, it's no longer a 1911. It's a different pistol. I don't know. I think it's like a Browning, but I'm not 100% sure.
It's one of those transforming guns, popular in 81.
Come on,
If you show me a movie where everything's just perfect and there's not one mistake.
The movie I make, I'll tell you what, I'm going to be the prop master extraordinaire over here. I'm going to make damn sure that there's continuity.
That's the point where you got to just be like, it's a movie. Like, there's going to be a few things that...
I don't know.
I mean, there's gross, like, things that happen in other films where it's just what, how the fuck did that happen? But this film, I don't think it goes that far. But anyway.
Also, most violent year and only 2 people die. Doesn't seem that violent.
Come on.
But no, I love this movie. I'm giving it a solid B+. Couldn't push it into the A tier because of the no red hair, disrespect. But otherwise, B+ all around. Loved it.
All right, please.
Yeah, I think Kelly and Cole both put this very aptly about what this movie is, what this movie stands for, how this movie was presented. I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is the best cinematography I've seen out of the movies that we have watched so far. Just as Oscar Isaac in general, he does so much with so little. Like he's not someone that acts particularly phenomenally, but he does so much with his camera time and his eye movement and his mouth movements and like just the subtle things that unless you're looking for it, you're not even going to see it. So Jessica Chastain this is as good as she's ever been in anything that I've ever seen. All the supporting cast was fantastic. I think the theme of the movie was a little heavy-handed. I don't think any of us had to guess what this movie was about. The metaphors weren't exactly subliminal, which is okay, especially in a movie like this. I think we should have touched up on more. I do think this movie does have strong anti-capitalism vibes, but I think it also has anti-gun vibes as well, which I think is something that we should have talked about. You know, this movie is one of the most misdirected names of all time. It's called The Most Violent Year. And as Cole said, there were like 2 deaths, and one was a suicide. But it makes sense within the time period that it was taking place in. And then one more thing that I want to say is that this was probably the best week of Oscar Isaac's life, because the same time that this was limited showed in December of 2014, but it was wide release the exact same week that Ex Machina came out, which also we're going.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we're gonna review that in a couple weeks, but
it was distributed the next year, by the way, which is why Ex Machina is going to be later in our timeline for reviews than this film.
So
by A24, it's distributed by A24. Yeah.
So given all that, I love the acting, I love the cinematography, the metaphors were good, slow at sometimes, but I think the slowness was on purpose, and it really made me appreciate the movie more. So I am going to give this an A-24. It's slipping on the edge between B+ and A-, but I think the things that I liked about it work more for me than the things I didn't like about it. So A-24, fantastic film. I would definitely watch it again, and I would request that my friends watch it at least once as well.
Yeah. So this was my second time seeing the film, and unlike Locke, which we reviewed earlier, I like this film even more on the second viewing, and when that happens, that means a film is pretty fucking good. Seeing this a second time, I just really paid attention to the writing and directing by J.C. Chandor, the acting, and just like cinematography, music, the overall message, and the metaphors. It was all just perfect. I think that there are other A24 films that aren't as heavy-handed in their metaphors and their message, but I actually can kind of just appreciate this for what this is. I'm okay with it being a more simple A to B plot, not having too much bubbling below the surface. I'm okay with that. And even better for me, this is a period piece. I love history. I love being placed in a different point in time and kind of living in it for up to 2 hours. That I always love that. So I'm going to give this my highest grade I've given so far. I'm going to give it an A24. It's my favorite film from the first 2 years of A24. Better than Enemy for me, better than Under the Skin, better than The Rover. I really enjoyed it. I loved everything about it. So there it is.
There you go.
Ending 2014 on a high note.
Man.
Snaps all around.
After that,
What a film.
Yeah.
after that absolute slogfest of the last 4 movies, it's good to
Yeah. See, maybe that was another thing. It's like the last 4/5 movies, we've had some pretty bad movies, and now this was so good compared to those films. So
Five minutes into this movie, I was like, oh yeah, now this is a film. That's
is what
they do.
filmmaking's
It's
supposed to be like.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
To be fair, I stick pat on my The Captive grade. I still think it was a way better movie
Have
than
it.
you guys gave it, but it's good to see that we can all come together as an A24 family again on a movie.
Yeah.
As long as we vibe.
Except for Kevin. Kevin couldn't make it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sadly, Kevin couldn't make it tonight.
Yeah,
but
Kevin hated this film.
So, a programming note here, our next episode, we are going to give our favorite film from 2013/2014 and our worst film from 2013/2014. And we're also going to have a film we wish we could have rated better and a film we wish we could have rated worse. And we are also going to interview a A24 cocktail maker, a guy named Brendan Johnston from the A24 film group. And he is going to make some A24 themed cocktails for us. And that's going to be a lot of fun. So
Yeah.
we will see you next week.
Yeah, should be fun.
Bye.
Bye.
Namaste.
A24.